So this is my first AP Human Geography video. This is just going to be an overview of Unit 1 of AP Human Geography. Unit 1 is just kind of setting you up for everything else that you're going to have to learn in AP Human. You know, it's just kind of like the overview. There's a lot of vocab words that are useful throughout the course. So yeah, let's get started. Alrighty, so first we're going to start with some maps. So there are a bunch of different types of maps. These are the main ones, the useful ones. So first we have reference maps. Those are for location, navigation, that kind of stuff. Yeah. Thematic maps always have some sort of theme. The theme is some sort of variable. For instance, the theme could include votes, stuff like that. Within thematic maps, we have isoline maps, which show contour lines that would help show weather, elevation, that kind of stuff. Then we have chloropleth maps, chloro, color, those are colored maps. The colors represent different categories. That is a type of thematic map. And then we have a cartogram. So this kind of map, the country's size depends on what it's trying to show. So a bigger population, you would have, I don't know, like the US would be pretty big, but then Russia would be kind of tiny, even though Russia is a huge country. When you're looking at it on a cartogram, Russia would be smaller because there is a lower population. So on a map for a globe, our Earth is a circle or a sphere. So for that to be put on a flat surface, which is a map, something has to be distorted. Whether that's shape, size, distance, direction, one or more of them has to be distorted. So this has to do with projection. So the projection is how map makers take our globe and put it on the flat surface of a map. So we have the Mercator projection. So the shape in the Mercator projection of countries is not very distorted, but the size is distorted more. So it's more distorted higher up at the latitudes, but it's less distorted at the lower latitudes. Then you have the polar projection. This is also known as the azimuthal projection. So it doesn't show the Earth as all of the countries flat down. It shows it looking in from above. So if you picture the Earth, you're looking in either from the North Pole or from the South Pole. So it doesn't show the entire map, and it makes Russia look closer to the US. Then, continuing, you have the Gauss-Peter projection. It's less Eurocentric. So the first maps were made mostly focused on Europe, having Europe in the center because Europe was the best, you know, like they were amazing. But that's really not how it is. Europe is not in the center of the Earth. So the Gauss-Peter projection shows a more accurate picture of the size of the world. And then you have the Robinson projection. All of the properties are distorted, but they're not majorly distorted. So it's kind of where they're all equally distorted so that it looks most closely to an accurate representation of the globe. So two vocab words that kind of go along with another vocab word themselves are absolute and relative location. Those are linked to maps. So your absolute location is exactly where you are. It includes longitude lines, latitude lines, and it doesn't change. So where you are stays the same. That is your absolute location. Then your relative location is your location based on something else. So I can say my house is near Publix. There you go. But that can change as the Publix can leave, and then the relative location of my house then changes. So those two words have two words that are linked to them. So absolute location is linked with the word site. So that's kind of like it's taking in the latitude and longitude, but it's also taking in the physical features of that absolute location. And then for relative location, you have situation. And so your situation has to do with connectivity. So what I mean by connectivity is it's basically saying how it connects to something else. So going back to my house being next to Publix, my house, the location of my house is based on its connection to Publix. So now moving on to comparisons of countries. So we have the world systems theory, which was created by Immanuel Wallerstein. So he separated countries into 3 different groups. So first, the highest level, we have the core countries, which have high levels of education, strong economies, good technology, high salaries, lots of women's rights, and then a lot of women in the workplace. Then in the center, we have the semi-periphery. This is kind of like a country that would take parts of the core characteristics and then parts of the lowest group, which is called the periphery countries. So the periphery countries they're the countries that have the lowest levels of education, not a lot of technology, they have lower salaries, and they don't have a lot of women's rights or women's education. So the way that these countries work is that there's kind of like a cycle of exploitation. So the core countries exploit that's my dog in the background. The core countries kind of exploit the semi-periphery, and then the semi-periphery go and exploit the periphery. Countries, for example, from the core countries, they decide, okay, the land in semi-periphery countries is cheaper, so we're gonna go use that land and those workers, because there's not a minimum wage that's as high as ours, so we're gonna go and exploit them and make more money because we can make our products for cheaper. Okay, big, huge word in AP Human is globalization. So this is the increasing interconnectedness of the world. So that is very important. It has to do with the diffusion that'll happen, the comparisons of all the countries, huge word. Okay, now we have types of regions. There are 3 main types of regions. The first region is a formal region where everyone shares one or more distinct trait and they are homogeneous and uniform in that trait. So that's why this is also called a homogeneous region or a uniform region. So in this region, the minorities aren't taken into account, so it's only including the majority. So for example, this could be a region that everyone speaks the same language, everyone has the same ethnicity, everyone has the same religion, stuff like that. Also, political units such as Florida is a formal region because all of the people in Florida have to follow Floridian laws. So that is their uniform characteristic that groups them together within formal regions. Next, we have a functional region, also known as a nodal region. So basically, the way that it works is there is a region, and in the center of the region is a node. So that is the focal point of that region. For example, we'll talk about it as a pizza place. So the pizza place is going to be our node, and the area around the pizza place that the pizza place delivers to or serves to is going to be included in that functional region. So that node delivers pizza to the places within that functional region. And then our last region is a perceptual region or a vernacular region. That is a region that has fuzzy borders. So for instance, we'll just talk about the American South. So in your mind, what you picture to be the American South might include Florida. But because I live in Florida, I might not picture Florida being part of the South. So everyone kind of has a different definition of that perceptual region because it all has to do with someone's. All right, next topic within Unit 1 is diffusion. So diffusion is the spreading of something. So things can spread in many different ways. So our two types of cultural diffusion are relocation diffusion and expansion diffusion. So kind of think of diffusion as an umbrella. So first we have relocation and then expansion. So relocation is when the migration of people takes the culture with them. So someone gets up, they move somewhere else, and they bring whatever they are diffusing with them. Then for expansion diffusion, a trend or whatever is diffusing is spreading outward, but it remains strong at the hearth or wherever it started. So relocation diffusion, the difference is that it doesn't necessarily have to stay strong at the hearth for relocation diffusion, but it does stay strong at the hearth for expansion diffusion. So within expansion diffusion, there are three types of expansion diffusion. So first we have hierarchical diffusion. So it's when the thing that is spreading, the trend, is starting at someone who has authority, power. So for instance, we're going to compare this to fashion. So you have some sort of trend. It starts in Paris or New York City, fashion capital of the world. Then it moves to Miami, not as fashiony, but still up there. Then it goes into a smaller city. Then it goes into a smaller city. And then you end up having that trend in your local Walmart store. So it starts at a really high up authority, power, someone that people look up to, and that trend then moves downward. Then we have stimulus diffusion. So that's kind of when you take the underlying principle of whatever is diffusing and then you bring it, but you reject some parts of that characteristic. So for instance, McDonald's in India. McDonald's is in India, but because Indians don't maybe eat meat because it's part of their Hindu culture that they don't eat meat because cows are sacred, that they bring McDonald's over, but instead of serving hamburgers, they have rice bowls. So they're taking that underlying principle of McDonald's, fast food, but they're rejecting the hamburger and cheeseburger part. Then last type of diffusion is contagious diffusion. That's where nearly all individuals and all places next to wherever it is diffusing from is affected. So everyone in contact gets that diffused. So for instance, you have viral videos, disease, coronavirus, just things that spread where everyone is affected. So when talking about diffusion, you also have to talk about the barriers to diffusion. This includes economic barriers, maybe they can't afford something that's being diffused, cultural barriers, maybe a part of a religion doesn't allow something that is included in the diffused thing. Physical barriers also count. Mountains, oceans kind of stop interactions with people. And then also political barriers. Maybe a country or their government creates laws about how they can't visit a website and therefore they can't have that viral video be diffused to them. Next, we have just some important vocab words just to go along with Unit 1. We have sense of place. So sense of place is how you feel about a place. So the feelings that you have associated with that place. Next, we have a perception of place. It's the way you feel about a place, even if you've never been there. And then mental maps are maps that you have made of a place that you have not been to. So before I went to my high school, I created a mental map of what I thought the high school would look like. So mental maps are completely different from what someone else thinks the idea of their high school might look like. Then we have the cultural landscape, which is anything that humans have touched, built, or anything that they have done. And then lastly, we have sequent occupants. So that has to do with cultural landscape. So successive societies leave parts of their cultural imprints wherever they go. All right, guys, that is it for this Unit 1 of AP Human Geography video. Sorry if it was a little long. I try to make my videos as short as I possibly can so that you can watch them the day before your test, whatever you have. Subscribe, give me a like, you know, do your thing, share this video. Just, yeah, thanks. All right, I will see you in the next video. Bye.